Thank you all for tuning in. Welcome to the Q with Q. It is me, your host, Quentin R. Giles, or Q. And today I'm very excited. I'm going to be talking to Mr. Quentin Wiltz, who is running for Mayor of Pearland. And as you can see, it looks a little different in my background right now, but as you all know, I keep it very real and authentic. I had to run in and take my grandmother to a doctor's appointment. So while she's getting checked out by the doctor, we're going to be doing the work here in the car while we talk to Quentin. So thank you, Quentin, again for being here. Introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, so while she's getting checked out, I'll get checked out as well.
Exactly.
My name is Quentin Wiltz, and I'm a resident of Pearland, Texas. We're a suburb of Houston, and one of the largest cities in Brazoria County, most populated. We have about 130,000 people officially. And so I am, as Quentin mentioned, Quentin Wiltz. So
right.
Q with Q.
Right. I like that.
Right. I'm running for mayor in Pearland. And what that means to a lot of people is that, we are at a significant point in our city's history. The city's been around for 125 years. There's been a lot of changes since that time, specifically in the last 20 years, with the growth, the explosion of population, the explosion of people, of cultures. And so that goes without saying that in the last 125 years, there's never been a person of color to occupy this role. So a lot of history been made here in this election.
That's I think that's really encouraging that you are standing in the gap, and letting us know that in the city's history, you would be, the first if you happen to win mayor. Hashtag it's time, as we see. We like the campaign slogan. So me and you have talked before. Full disclosure to the audience, we've talked before, and the last time we talked, I just wanted to just round back on it so that everyone can kind of get cued into what we were talking about. We mentioned George Floyd, and George Floyd has been laid to rest in Pearland.
Correct.
And so with we know the movement of Black Lives Matter against police brutality is not a new thing, right? This is work that people have been doing for years and years and years, even going back to the civil rights era. R.I.P. John Lewis. But what I want to know is, with you running for mayor in Pearland, and George Floyd, who kind of was an unintended martyr for this new energized movement that is still taking place to this day. We're still having protests. Portland, Oregon is on day 53 of protests since the George Floyd murder. What does that mean for you and the community of Pearland, with him being his body's final resting place, being in the city? What does that do for you, and what type of energy is that bringing to your campaign and things that you want to see accomplished centered around police brutality and misconduct?
Yeah, so that there's a lot to unpackage with when people say George Floyd. There's a lot to unpackage because it's not really just him as a person of color, trying to make it in a society that has yet come to grasp fully the effects of human trafficking, Jim Crow, and chattel slavery in this country for 400 years. And so all of these things are culminating in what we see today in civil unrest. By no means does me, or I think anyone in this world, would condone violence. But there's Dr. King has put it so eloquently in summary that these riots are the voice of the hopeless, are people experiencing, and in some ways, I think it's unfair for people who react in an other than nonviolent way to be characterized as villains or people who are cruel, because this country was founded on violence and a violent revolt against tyrannical oppression. Right. And I think people need to truly relate what happened then to what's going on now. And it's people who feel like they're being oppressed in whatever means of government. And whether you believe right or wrongly as to the cause, I think ultimately we must open up and understand and create the dialogue. And George Floyd being laid to rest in Pearland has even opened up some wounds, I guess, locally, because Well, Pearland itself originated from a very small town,
Hmm.
and I think we're fooling ourselves if we don't acknowledge, just like Houston is extremely segregated in the wards that exist. And if you don't
Yeah.
know that, definitely do the history.
Yeah.
Uh, of Freedman's Town and the things that exist that continue to perpetuate now. We now have geographic almost separation and segregation in our school systems. I mean, you cross Beltway 8, and there's an abundance of economic opportunity here in Pearland,
Hmm.
which is what we're trying to work for. And you see it in our school systems. It's why people continue to move here to put their kids in a good quality education, a good,
Right.
a good safe environment. Not to say that other places aren't safe, but Pearland is consistently ranked one of the safest places to live.
Hmm.
So we have all these dynamics. So what every person experiences everywhere can't be summarized as a whole to what each individual experiences in every part of the neighborhood. So what they're experiencing
Right.
in Brooklyn, I'm fortunate as a parent, as a husband, and brother,
Yeah.
that we don't experience these things here in Pearland. That's not to say that they could not and would not happen, but it stems from building relationships with people and being comfortable with people who
Hmm.
don't look like you, who don't pray like you, who don't speak like you. And
Hmm.
when you come up in those situations, you begin to know people. And the fears that I think a lot of what we see exist are done away with. And so that's what has come to this campaign immediately after the things started to come up. What I did personally, was reach out to the Brazoria County NAACP, and rather than protest in the streets, I'm a person of faith. I'm a man of faith. I teach my children to
Hmm.
be young men who to trust in God. And so collectively, we brought all faiths together: Catholic, Christian, Muslim. We brought police officers together. We brought active groups like the Houston Area Urban League, Brazoria
Hmm.
County NAACP, Constable's Office, Chief of Police for Pearland, and residents and anyone else who wanted to join us. And we collectively got together to stand in prayer, to pray for not only our nation, but our law enforcement officers, the people who are being persecuted, the people who are protesting, and to pray for this nation, our city, and
Yeah.
our community. And I think it's really that's the leadership that I hope to bring in Pearland, is to bring people together, to come together, to understand, and not say, when people tell me that they're colorblind, uh,
Hmm.
oh, I don't expect you to be colorblind. I want you to see my color, to see that I'm different, but to
Right.
not treat me any differently, and to not deny me
Then you
out
would.
because of that color. So
Right.
that's
Let
what's
me
about.
let me push you on something. And I want to go back. Martin Luther King said, the riots is the language of the unheard, and you kind
Sure.
of referenced that. Um, and so I think, me personally, I think it is a little unfair. Well, it's a lot of unfair to lump protesters and rioters in together. But I always try to look at the cause. The effect is important to study and figure out, but we have to go to the cause, right? And so with us talking about Pearland, you also mentioned that you're fortunate enough that what's happening in Portland is not happening in Pearland.
Right.
Um, I would put on the floor that I've talked to several people who have not had the best experience with the Pearland police. Even full disclosure, I hope he's okay with it. Even my older brother, who the very first time a gun was put to his head was by Pearland police.
Mhm.
And I say that as not like, oh, my brother wasn't doing anything wrong, but from the story that I've been told, it was just a routine traffic stop that escalated very quickly. And by his account, on the hand of the police. So what I don't want to do is escape that police brutality and misconduct couldn't happen in Pearland. And so what I want to know from you, as someone running for the mayor, what would you like to see, what that would safeguard your citizens um, against police misconduct, and what would you also like to see within the police department itself for them to essentially police themselves? And what I mean by policing themselves is, what would you like to see, like good cops speaking out against bad cops? What if a bad cop does something? What type of investigation tools should be activated? What's your plan, and what do you want to see for the city?
No, and I think all of those are grounded in, those are really good questions,
Hmm.
but fundamentally they're grounded in and to me, and what I understand is one thing, and that comes down to personal responsibility and our ability to see each other as people. And let me elaborate on that just a bit. So what people tend to do is to associate a cop as being a person, and that's not the case. A cop is a profession. It's a job that people we empower people to uphold, and we give them so much responsibility to enforce laws and uphold the laws.
Right.
Well, before any person like you or me gets into any profession or job, we bring to that job any biases or natural tendencies that we normally have.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about how to treat this, a lot of people are treating it as an after effect, and you're trying to treat the effects rather
Right.
than the cause.
Right.
And so when we talk about, oh, well, we're going to ban chokeholds, we're going to ban this, we're going to do that. I've had conversations with the police department, the assistant chief of police, and they are currently working to that end to be proactive, to put forth a policy that would, for lack of a better term, to check themselves, right? Or as well as to make sure that their practices are in line with what responsible peace officers should be. Now, that doesn't go that that's going to stop anything, but in recent weeks and months, we've seen the promotion of Officer Davis, who's a respected officer here in Pearland, and her ability to be in the community and to see and to allow law enforcement officers and people in the community to interact and to participate. And I think where it comes from as mayor, what I would want to do is to see, to get officers who have grown up in different neighborhoods, to experience and be involved in organizations and maybe like a basketball league or something like that, to be able to interact with people. Because really, before you put on the badge or take off the badge, there's certain things that unfortunately exist in our society, and that is the color, our racial lines, our religious lines. And it's really engaging people and getting them to participate in a Muslim practice or church service, visiting a mosque, visiting predominantly African American churches, right? These are officers. These are what the things I think people should do, regardless of officer or not. Because until we're able to break down the boundaries of fear, we will never see each other as equals, and we'll never be able to participate and engage society as human beings.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Might I suggest something as well? Well, I'm going to go back to the previous conversation we had, and then I'll implement my suggestion. We talked about, I believe you said some type of community council that you wanted to implement. I think I saw it on your Instagram as well. That I think the day after we talked, y'all put that out there. So I was like, okay, we're going to hold him to that. Could you just explain really quickly what that is, that community council, in relation to police?
Yeah. So no, and thank you for bringing that up. Part of our rollout, what I've just been living here and understanding, we have 64 languages being spoken in some school districts. We have about 6 school districts within Pearland, and as more and more people move here, we talk about diversity, right? That's diversity has become a buzzword, and no one, and in some regards, go anywhere with it other than to use the statistics to attract more people to make them feel comfortable. Well, there's a second piece of being diverse, because we can be diverse and live in our separate silos, but what good does that do? So the second piece of that is inclusion. And as mayor, one of the first things that I want to implement to really bring our city to the 21st century and embrace the international presence or global existence of people is to create a diversity and inclusion board that will include people from the community of different walks of life, faiths, professions, to come in and to really guide and help us as leaders make decisions, which is based on policing. It's also based on economic incentives or economic opportunities for historically underutilized businesses, businesses owned by women. So all of these things come into play when we talk about the things that I want to create, which is a diversity inclusion board. in the city of Pearland.
Hmm. And with that diversity inclusion board, I heard a lot of different things that the board would essentially assist with. I think when we were talking, well, I know when we were talking, we were mainly talking about police oversight or police interaction with the
Absolutely.
community. And so I just want to drill down a little bit on that. If this board is implemented, so Houston has done something similar, but it's not as broad as what you're talking about. It's really focused specifically on police interaction in the community. You know, HPD is going through some things right now. Well, no, the community is going through some things with HPD. Let me say
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
But a lot of criticism that board has received is that the board really doesn't have any power.
Hmm.
There is no subpoena power. There is no recommendations are recommendations, right?
Sure.
They're and they can be listened to or they cannot be listened to. And so a lot of people are complaining that they feel like that board really doesn't have teeth, and that it's more performative than anything else.
Hmm.
So what I want to ask about, and we'll move on from police after this question, um, with ensuring that the citizens of Pearland, because I'm in Pearland, so us in Pearland
Hmm.
can have people that we do endow with this power, this police power to protect and serve.
Hmm.
What are we going to do? And I say we because I'm expecting you to be in leadership if you get the position. What are we going to do to hold them accountable? Will this board have some teeth in it that can actually implement and assist with making productive policing reforms so that the police officers are safe, but so is the community?
Yeah, no, I think that's a viable question. Uh,
Mm-hmm,
the only issue that I can't make promises is that once the board is enacted,
mm-hmm.
it's up to council to make the decision as to what authority this board would be given. So whether I
Okay.
and so that's the only holdup that I couldn't make any commitments.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as far as
And when
the
you say council, you mean city council?
correct. So that the
Mm-hmm.
governing body would have to decide at what level of authority they would be given because it has to be written into the charter and some other
Right.
things.
So what would be something? Obviously, we know that would take a vote, but what would be something that you would support? That you would say, "Hey, I can get behind this for this goal."
No, absolutely. I mean, so what people want to know is transparency.
Hmm.
They want to know what's going on because behind the closed doors with the people that are elected to represent them.
Hmm.
With regard specifically to police, I think first it starts with understanding what the rules and what police officers or peace officers are held to,
Yeah.
especially in the suburb. And people like myself who have the opportunity to have relationships with people within the police department who are doing some really great things. Those things need to be brought out. So that's the
Yeah.
first part. As mayor, that's the one thing that I can do is bring that sort of transparency to the table to lay out the plan that the department puts forth, and then
Hmm.
with the buy-in or with the feedback and recommendations from key members in the community to at least modify or make recommendations to them. I think that's where it
Hmm.
has to start because
Right.
you can't. I mean, obviously, you can't build a bridge without materials, but you can't build a bridge unless you know you're going to have somewhere to cross. And
Right.
first, to come
Mm.
together, understand that there is a chasm or a gap that we should be able to bridge, and that's
Yeah.
where the mayor comes into play.
Gotcha. And so, just to go back to my suggestion that I said I'd loop back around to, might I've recently found out, for cops in general, before they're hired, they go through this psychological evaluation,
Sure.
and pretty much that's the only psychological evaluation they go through in their tenure. And so, I would suggest that may need to happen twice a year. We might need to find that in the budget, because we can't deny that being in this profession, there are a lot of risks to this. And
Sure.
if anybody that knows me, I'm not one to defend the cops like that. But I can identify that there are risks in this profession. And so time and time again, after you have traumatic experiences, I'm coming from a social worker perspective, since that's what my undergrad and master's is in. When we continue to have these traumatic experiences along with our preconceived notions and our biases, that creates a dangerous situation for a person that has been endued or endowed with power and has a gun, technically a license to kill, if you will. And so the psychological evaluations that they go through upon employment, that might be something that we need to look at twice a year to unpack to see where they are, because we don't want to send a mad person on the street with a shield, and we never know it. So that's just my suggestion. I'll put that out there. You take it, do whatever you want to do with it. But I think that that's something really that needs to be implemented nationwide. And so I'd like to press on. You talked about economic opportunities in Pearland, and Pearland is one of economic opportunity. Now it's interesting because on one side of Brazoria County, it looks old and dusty, and then the closer you get to 288, it's new and it's fresh, and all those things. So what is the plan to really expand what's happening along that 288, 518? Oh, thank you for the construction that we'll get some more lanes. But what is the plan to expand what's happening around 288, 518 to the rest of Pearland, which is in Brazoria County?
Yeah, no, and so I know some people, you travel across Pearland. Pearland is
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to wide, and so a lot of it revolves around Broadway or 518 because
Yes.
it crosses the entire city. And
Yeah.
when you move from one area to the other, you see a lot of rapid growth, a lot of new development as you go into the Old Town site, which I like to
Mm-hmm.
dub as the historic district.
Oh, okay.
As you move
It's
closer
it's it's very historic.
as you
Yes,
move
it
closer to
is.
the historic district, there is a different appeal. And so I will
Yeah.
tell you personally, I'm from a
Yeah.
small town in Louisiana, and maybe 6,000, 8,000 max people.
Hmm.
And that's why I moved to Pearland. I didn't want to live in the city. I wanted
Oh,
a
okay.
small town charm. I wanted to know neighbors. I mean, it didn't feel intimidating to me. And so there's a
Hmm.
large population of people that is what appeals to them. And I think that's
Hmm.
what makes Pearland a really great place to live because you can get your flavor within the boundaries of the city. And if you want that type of hometown atmosphere, you can get it.
Hmm.
If you want something that is more of like a metropolitan area, it's not so
Hmm.
city, you can get it. And I think that's what the charm of Pearland is. And I think we need to recognize that. So there is a
Hmm.
unified development plan in place. But like any plan that you have, the success of that plan depends on the input. And if you
Hmm.
don't have a broad ranging field of input, then your solution is going to be narrow. And unfortunately, if you don't have elected leaders uh, like myself in, in that position to be able to bring the right people to the table,
Hmm.
then, as they say, insanity is if you keep doing the same thing and
Yeah.
expecting a different result, that's a problem. And so that's why it's time, Quentin, for new
Yes.
leadership.
It
Time for
ha,
new ideas.
hashtag it's time. Hashtag it's time. Yes, I would totally agree. Okay. Let's talk about your actual campaign because we talked about this last time too.
Sure.
This is your second time running for mayor, right?
Correct. Yes.
Um, and I looked at the stats. I looked at the statistics. The last time, uh, obviously you didn't win, but it wasn't like a blowout, like a Kathleen Wall blowout. It was you were close. You were close. So talk to us about why um, that didn't discourage you because I've known some people. I have a varied amount of friends who have run and may not have even been blown out again, like Kathleen Wall. Uh, yes, that insert shade. Uh,
Yeah, I see.
but well, those commercials were taking me over the edge. So, I'm glad that we decided to rebuke her. But I've seen so many people that will run and just like they get rejected, by the voters and don't want to run again. So talk to us about why you chose, even though we know it's time, but what internally was going on and what mentally was going on to say, I actually do need to do this again, and I am the right person for this position.
So, I hope this doesn't come off as cliche or anything, but
Hmm.
I've been married for 16 years,
Uh-huh.
and I lean a lot on my faith, but I also lean a lot on my partner, my
Hmm.
wife. I've been knowing her since I was 16, and she knows me. And really, the motivation is the belief that she has in me to
Mm.
be the role model and to be the leader that our community needs. And so
Yeah.
that's really where it started. Because, I'll be honest, anytime you put forth the effort, the energy, the time, and the money
Hmm.
into an endeavor like running for mayor, it is emotionally draining,
Yeah.
financially draining, and you have to really understand that the time invested and to push forward for something that you don't know if you're gonna get,
Yeah.
right? So it really took a toll as far as those things. I mean, I'm still here standing, but a lot of that is a testament to our relationship and
Hmm.
how much she believes that I can be a voice for this community, to better this community, to bring us
Yeah.
where we need to be. So that's part of it. And the other part is that, I came really close. Uh,
Yeah. You did.
I came really close. And so
Yeah.
before the runoff, it was about, this, keep in mind, I ran against not just a man, but an institution. He's been here for
Hmm.
30 years
Yeah.
and he's done some really good things. And part of my motivation in doing that was not to disrespect him in any way, was not to try to pull detractors.
Hmm.
But it really, I think, was a point in time in our community where Pearland has changed. And it was
Yeah.
just, I was also inspired by some of the people who believed in me outside of my personal relationship with people in the community that said, we believed in him, but it's time. It's time for
Yeah.
him to pass it on, to move on,
Yeah.
to the next, to give that to the opportunities to the next generation. So that's where all the motivation came from, and a huge support system here at home,
Yeah.
starting with my queen. So
Yo, boo. Yeah, and that let me say this. That doesn't sound cliche at all. That sounds to me. I don't know how the viewers are taking, but that sounds beautiful. I'm all here for the marriage. Shout out to the queen at home. So we need your backbone right there. Protect her at all costs. Uh, okay, great. So tell us something. We're gonna round out here.
Sure.
So tell us something. You have two sons. Are they both teenagers or just one?
Uh, One is 15 and one is 12. So on the
Okay,
cusp.
on the cusp, on the cusp. So you're raising two. I know you said a person of color. My viewers know I'm not really a fan of person of color. I like to specifically identify people. I do. I just feel like
Yeah,
when we say people of color, I understand the movement and what we're trying to do,
sure.
but I feel like it diminishes each one of our experiences. And like you
Yeah.
said earlier, like I want you to see me. I'm black. I'm real
Yeah.
black with black hair. And that's okay, and I like it. So I am a black male.
Yeah.
But so you are raising two black sons.
Sure.
Uh, what do you tell them about the world? Whether that be involvement in police, uh, education, just living, finding their potential queen one day. What's some impartation that you're giving to your sons as you're developing and growing them up?
So I can tell you that has evolved over time, and
Yeah.
the I'll have to get with you on the black versus color another time.
Uh-huh.
That is a deeper,
That
totally
is a deeper
different
conversation. It
discussion,
is.
because
Yeah.
you have to realize I'm coming from Louisiana, and it is a different ball game in
Yeah.
Louisiana with that. So in Texas, it's a little bit different. I've learned to navigate a little bit differently, but with my
Hmm.
sons, it's evolved. There was a time where I really tried to raise them and to
Yeah.
not have them not identify as black or brown or whatever. Just, hey, I'm
Hmm.
an American here, right? And that was the motivation. But in light of everything that's going on,
Hmm.
we can't escape. We just can't escape our history.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned to you, there's a documentary series called Eyes on the Prize.
Hmm.
Uh, I drowned them in that stuff.
Yeah.
Just tried to have them fully encapsulated on the history of the movement in the 50s and the 60s, and try to educate them as to where we as former
Yeah.
property came
Yes.
from, and why the experiences of those people, of enslaved people, human trafficking, and
Hmm.
economic consequences of that in our society, how that relates to where we are today. So these experiences, and the fact that they're older and be able to mentally understand that
Yeah.
when we talk, and then it's completely changed. On top of that, my wife sits with them, and the fears that she has is made. We're able to communicate with them when they walk outside. I mean, yes, we're sheltered in this Pearland suburban bubble,
Yeah.
but that doesn't exist everywhere, and you can't control how other people view or see you.
Hmm.
So my son, he walks around this house like mini Apollo Creed here. He has he's getting to that age, no shirt on, he wears a hoodie, a little
Yeah.
gold chain, right? And but when he comes
Drip.
down to it, yeah, drip, exactly, right? So he comes down, he walks around us, and the rule is take the hoodie off, take
Mhm.
the hoodie off. And so you may say, okay, well, that's nothing. No, because I don't want you in a habit of walking outside these protected four walls and
Yeah.
having someone see you other than the beautiful young man, respectable,
Yeah.
God-fearing, intelligent person that you are, because that is how society will judge you.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. When you go get the mail, hoodie off, nothing. When you go to
Yeah.
school, hoodie off. And it might seem so trivial, but it is the reality that we live in, and I want to make
Yeah.
them aware of the world we live in. So that's
Well,
these are types of conversations that we try to have with them,
yeah.
and they're intelligent enough to know and to perceive and understand and talk to their friends about it.
Yeah.
But it brings a different awareness. But they still are young kids. They want to
Yeah.
have fun, and so you don't burden them with all the burdens of society, but they still
Right.
have to know, right? So.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think the hoodie off is trivial. I mean, I think the hoodie off is coming from the Trayvon Martin killing. So I don't think it's trivial. It's unfortunate that has to be a conversation, but a conversation that's being had. I don't think it's trivial at
Well,
all.
not
So
not just Trayvon, but more recently,
yeah,
Aubrey running,
right,
just
running,
running. My
exactly,
son runs and
exactly.
trains for soccer,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah,
mean, don't be fooled. I mean, there's people out here that they don't know you. They
yeah,
don't know you. You don't know them, so you
yeah,
don't know what people are thinking. And this
yeah.
is Texas, man. People carry.
That part, that
No,
part.
that's a reality. That is a
Yeah, that's a real reality, and just that I've thought about that even with the Portland situation, and we won't dig too deep, but I'm gonna say it. With I'm like, okay, y'all have sent unmarked federal agents there. If you come on down here to Texas, let me put my twang on it. If you roll up on us in some unmarked paramilitary gear, it's likely to be a shootout.
yeah.
You can't. So you went to Portland. I know you did go to Portland. So anyway, we'll move on for that. I don't want to get you in trouble and
No,
get you wrapped up
it's
in that
it's
one.
an unfortunate reality that we live in a potentially violent world, and people
Yeah,
carry weapons of death in their
mass
pocket,
destruction. Yes, correct.
with there's no sense of if, ands, or buts.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
fear is the major driving force, which is what gets back to what we talked about. You
Hmm.
know, I don't want you to be colorblind. I want you to see who I am, because I
Exactly.
expect that you treat me no differently than anybody else.
Right. While recognizing I'm real
Well,
black.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So okay. So tell one final question. We like to be lighthearted here, and we want to know something fun about you. We want to know, like, when you're not working, when you're not raising the kids, when you're not with the queen, or you could be, or when you're not, running for mayor. What's something fun that you just do? That Quentin enjoys. Even if the world was burning all around us, which some might argue it is, what is something that you would just be doing to just relax and have a good time?
So, that again, that changes too. I think I told you the last time.
Mm-hmm.
I my maybe we can get into it again, but I wasted a lot of time in my youth with college and a lot of
Yeah.
different things. I feel like it's wasted, and I'm at a point in my life where I want to consume everything and just
Yeah.
consume everything. So, this might sound boring, but I mean, I read a lot. I listen to
Mm-hmm.
audiobooks, but really because of COVID and everything now, and experiencing the death that is real at our doorsteps,
Yeah.
a little bit of what I've been doing to have fun has changed a bit. And that's really spent time with my boys. And, they play a lot of video games. And so I try to hop on with them. I try to kick it old school. I'll throw on
Yeah.
some stuff like Mario, and then because I know I can compete, I don't want to get into Madden. I don't want to get into Madden because then it'll just be too real in here.
That's not your testimony. Madden is not your testimony.
So it'll just get really bad in here. But I
Yeah.
mean, what really gives me joy is now, with everything going on, is spending time with them. Whether that's
Yeah.
walking in our neighborhood, going for a walk with my wife. I mean, we try to do that more often now. Well,
Yeah.
we put that 3 miles in with no problem. We'll walk three
Yeah.
miles, run a little bit, but it's really just spending time with them. I mean, that to me, that's what this whole moment of COVID is all about. And I think when you talk about, to bring it back to the beginning of the conversation about George Floyd, I think one of the most interesting things about this moment in time, and one phrase that encapsulates everything we're going through, is "I can't breathe." And that's not particularly to his killing, but everything that we're experiencing, because the major element of this pandemic is that it takes away our ability to breathe. So right now, our society is almost suffocating because we're trying to figure out how to cope with whatever it is that we're going through. And so the other part of me having fun is really just thinking about how to make things better, man. That's what I do. So
wonderful. Real quick, I gotta ask this one last question. Give me one sentence. First 100 days, you're a mayor. What is the one thing you want to enact? What is the very first thing you want to enact for the city? Your prized policy. What is it?
This may sound simple, but it's really, what I truly enjoy is hearing and understanding the community, and there's no better way to do that than enact quarterly town hall meetings. We've got to have those where I can engage with residents all across Pearland. That's one of the things that I think the easiest thing to do is to go and meet people where they are. So that's
quarterly town hall meetings.
That's the first thing. I mean, that's on a basic level.
That's all I ask. First thing, what's one thing you want to do? Quarterly town hall meetings, transparency and talking. Okay, wonderful. Well, I thank you for chatting with me again in this time of COVID. I'm glad we're able to do it here virtually. And anything that you'd like to leave us with, because I'm going to close us out.
Yeah, no, just realize that this election is going to be November the 3rd. Early voting starts 2 weeks prior. That may change, but the fact of the matter is the election is November 3rd. I'm going to be on the bottom of the ballot at the top of the ticket. Because of all the other races that are going on, I'm going to be there. And so what I really want people to realize is that no matter who you're voting for at the top of the ticket, that every single vote for every single position matters, and nothing matters is more important than the people who make decisions about your lives on a very local level. These are the people that you can go and talk to them. You'll see them in the grocery store. You'll see them out in the gym when we go back to them. You'll see their kids out in the schools, right? But these are the most important positions, and I'd be humbled and honored to serve this community for 3 years to affect change for the next 20 to 40 years. That's how important it is. And that's why you need to go out and don't forget about the candidates at the bottom of the ticket.
Perfect. Mr. Quentin Wiltz, it's time.
It's time. It's time for you to get your grandma.
It's definitely time for me to swing back and get her. I know she probably done, but that's okay. That's okay. They got her with the wheelchair, so she all right. But I thank you. I thank you again for having this conversation. I thank you all for listening, and I thank you all for watching. Again, this has been The Q with Q with me, Quentin R. Giles, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Bye.